Kagaribi 13 was the largest Smash Ultimate tournament of all time, and it was an event so big that the events surrounding it were lumped together with it, as a sort of concert performance. Super Major Level Up Expo 2025 went down the weekend prior to Kagaribi and was seen as the opener on our little concert here. Super Premiere Kagaribi 13 was, of course, the headliner, the main event, the thing that everyone was here to see. But there was also a third tournament, a Japanese Super Major that many overseas competitors here for Kagaribi stayed for, despite the tournament being about 10 times smaller in entrant count. This tournament, Kowloon number 16, is the encore of our concert. The audience cried out for one more song, and this tournament was here to perform and to let Golden Week go out with a bang. My name's RisterMice, and today we'll be covering everything about Kowloon 16, the storylines headed into the event, the upsets that threw the bracket into chaos, and finally how the top 16 competitors got whittled down to just one. And yes, the TOs of this tournament insist that it's pronounced Kowloon, not Kowloon. I think it's weird too. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into the storylines. Like I mentioned in the opening of the video, Kowloon 16 had a lot of the competitors that Kagaribi 13 did, with one big exception. Akola, the player who actually won Kagaribi, and Raru, the runner-up, both didn't attend Kowloon 16. And the winner of Level Up Expo, Doramigi, also wasn't attending, meaning that Grand Finals was wide open for anyone hungry enough to come and take it if they could. Though, compared to Kagaribi 13's around 3,000 entrants, Kowloon only had around 400, meaning that it was top-heavy to the nth degree. Who were the players that made up that heavy top? Well, here's a graphic of the top 64 seeds from Pupa on Twitter, and I, as well as many of you, recognize basically everyone here. This tournament, as the encore for Golden Week, was a lot more low-key than Kagaribi was. Since the main attraction was over, a lot of people were a lot more relaxed, which is good for some competitors and bad for others. While the storylines here for the top seeds are mostly the same as they were at Kagaribi, there is one competitor we have to talk about: Tweek. As announced on Twitter, Kowloon 16 is going to mark Tweek's final Smash Ultimate tournament, meaning that this was his last chance to either go out with a bang or a whimper. And lastly, for our storylines today, there were two smaller pre-local tournaments that happened before Kowloon. One that counted for the rankings because it wasn't technically a pre-local, and one that didn't count for the rankings because it was the real pre-local, so to speak. Of these two tournaments, the one that counted for rankings was a regional C-tier tournament that kind of just slapped before Kowloon onto its name, and which was taken by Apollo Kage. Notably, this tournament also saw Spargo get a disappointing finish, mostly because he didn't realize this tourney counted for the rankings and was using Piranha Plant in winner's bracket. Good thing Spargo would never use Plant in the main bracket of a Super Major, right?
That's called foreshadowing.
The other tournament, the real pre-local, was won by MK Leo, who notably was joined in Grands by Gorioka. Sadly, it doesn't seem as though this Joker Ditto Grands can be enjoyed, since I'm not sure this tournament was actually streamed anywhere. And that's it for our storylines headed into Kowloon 16. We'll be starting off with some solitary upsets, mostly going over ones that were either very big or notable for some kind of narrative. Also, as always, check out this graphic by Fire the Pyro for some context on upset factor and what all these numbers mean. Let's go ahead and get started. Our first upset of the day is a relatively small one, but interesting in contrast with Kagaribi. Kutini is a Smashmate Ike main who was attending their very first offline event, much like Frontier and Nyanchan, who we covered at Kagaribi. And even Kowloon itself released a graphic hyping him up. Sadly though, Kutini would actually be the victim of an upset, losing to American Daisy main Sora J in a 2-0 set for an upset factor 2 victory. And Kutini would eventually go on to place 65th as the 35th seed, though put an asterisk on that placing that we'll come back to later. Sora J, on the other hand, actually went on to make yet another upset, defeating Yonapi's Pichu in a Game 5 set that clocked in at upset factor 3, with Sora J eventually going on to place 33rd as the 94th seed after losing to Sonics and WebJP. For Yonapi's part, he'd go on to lose to Rivers in another Game 5, upset factor 3, to place 49th as the 30th seed. This actually wasn't Rivers' only upset, because he'd also defeat Mark's Yoshi for an upset factor 3 victory, after Mark had previously top-8'd back-to-back majors at Sumobato SP57 and Obaitori 2. Though upon hearing of that previous upset, you may ask yourself, why was Webb JP in losers in the first place? Well, Webb actually lost really early on in pools 2-0 to Yakara, who plays Fox, Falco, and Wolf. Talk about a real spacey specialist. This set clocked in at an upset factor 5 and cast Webb down into losers, where he actually went on an insane losers run, defeating Kian's Link and Ryopei's Snake, both in Game 5s, as well as Sora J's Daisy 3-1, before lastly losing a Game 5 to Rarakusu, to place 25th as the 22nd seed after going on one of the highlight losers runs of the tournament. Fox main and 28th seed Kananabe lost to Greninja main Mirukage, the 101st seed, 2-0 for an upset factor 4. Though don't worry Kananabe fans, this isn't actually the last time we'll hear from him. For now though, we've gotta move on. Two Diddy Kong mains would gather great upsets, one from NA and one from Japan. American Diddy Kong Beastly, mostly known for his Rivals 2 career these days, got a 3-0 win over Xi'an's Hero for a minor upset. This is impressive because 1. Hero is considered hard for Diddy by certain players, and 2. Xi'an was using the Japanese hero menu, which Beastly was very unconfident in reading. This is also apparently Beastly's last Ultimate tournament, much like Tweak. At least I think so. So it's a good win to close out Beastly's Ultimate career. The Japanese Diddy Kong, Ryuo, defeated Goryoka in a 3-1 minor upset, notable because of Goryoka's amazing performance at the pre-local that we covered earlier. And also good for Ryuo given the fact that he had been massively upset at Kagaribi just the weekend prior. For Goryoka's part, he'd later lose to Cloudman Akasa 3-1, upset factor 3, to place 49th as the 32nd seed. Chag, who also had a good pre-local performance, even beating Spargo with his Min, got upset in a close Game 5 by French Fox main Ryukai, a minor upset. Chag would later go on to lose to Ryuo in a Game 5 minor upset to place 33rd as the 29th seed. Next up is a major upset that befell Meister, who just won his first ever major a few weeks ago at Obaitori 2. Meister would lose a Game 5 to Kazuya main Nagare, who had just upset French Palu main and notable coach Echo in a minor upset the round prior. And since Meister was the 10th seed and Nagare the 74th, this clocked in at an upset factor 6 win. Meister then dropped into losers and defeated Kutini, which is that asterisk I mentioned earlier. Yes, the Smashmate Ike did underperform his seed, but he lost to the 10th seed in a really early meeting between the two of them. Would Kutini have done better had he not ran into Meister? Perhaps. But Meister himself would also underperform, losing to another Kazuya main, Miko, in yet another Game 5, upset factor 5, to place 49th as the 10th seed. And with back-to-back underperformances at Kagaribi and Kowloon, part of me has to wonder if winning his first ever major threw him off his game for these two much bigger tournaments. I guess we'll never know for sure. American Wolf main Danny made some big waves at Kowloon by upsetting the two French Steve mains. First, reverse 3-0ing the 13th seed Crepe Soleil for an upset factor 4 win, and then defeating the 20th seed Susu 3-1 for an upset factor 3. Two phenomenal wins that knocked Europe's two best Steves down into losers. These two Steves would end up losing to two winning matchups to be eliminated early, with Crepe Soleil losing a Game 5 to Ryuo's Diddy Kong for 25th, and with Susu losing 3-0 to Kananabe's Fox for 33rd. See? Told you he'd be back. Then again, there is a chance that Kananabe used Min, but this set wasn't streamed, so I couldn't tell you. As for Danny, he'd go on to place 17th as the 52nd seed after losing to Shuton's Olimar and Kurofone's Sonic. Rarchor, the Moroccan Sora and best African player, got two good upset wins. First using his Cloud to get a minor upset over Moku Moku, the Yoshi that beat Dabuz at Kagaribi, and then defeating the American Min main Zurzel for another good minor upset. He also beat Mirukage, the Greninja who beat Kananabe, before lastly losing to Beastly to place 33rd as the 69th seed after being double eliminated by Diddy Kong. Talk about a rough pull for this Sora man. Next up, we've got Kept, who defeated Yoshidora in a close Game 5, good for an upset factor 4, as Yoshidora was the 11th seed compared to Kept's 43rd. Though not only was this upset good for Kept, it was also the beginning of Yoshidora's legendary losers run, which we'll cover later. Speaking of losers runs that we're gonna go over later in the video, our next upset befell Peanut, who lost to Apollo Kage in a close Game 5 set, minor upset. And while yes, AK continued his good performance at the pre-local in this set despite the bad matchup, this set is actually more important for Peanut's story, which again, we'll go over later. And believe it or not, that's actually it for solitary upsets at Kowloon 16. I now want to go over some players who didn't quite make top 8, but whose runs deserve a lot of recognition. We've got 3 to go over: Peanut, Ryuo, and Kurofune. Like I just mentioned, Peanut lost a Game 5 to Apollo Kage to drop into losers early. But from here, he defeated Futari no Kiwami A 3-2, Rivers 3-1, Kept 3-2, and Akakikusu 3-1, before eventually losing to Miya to place 9th as the 15th seed. And honestly, I think Peanut's time in Japan deserves more credit. Even I didn't mention his run at Kaguribi, where he beat Leaf, Akakikusu, and Neo to place 17th. 2 rounds ahead of what he was projected to place. And now he's here at Kowloon, 1 set away from having made top 8. The other big run here belongs to Ryuo, who bounced back from his Kaguribi underperformance by basically sweeping up the victims of upsets and eliminating them, defeating Goryoka, Chag, and Crepe Soleil, all of which we covered earlier, as well as defeating MK Big Boss, an upset factor 4 win. Eventually, Ryuo would lose to Kurofune's Sonic to place 13th as the 33rd seed. Speaking of which, Kurofune had perhaps the biggest sleeper run of the entire tournament, defeating Neitoru in a Game 5, as well as Beastly and Danny 3-0, and then Ryuo 3-2 to place 9th as the 24th seed. And now it's time for us to whittle our way down to top 8, seeing the competitors who slogged through top 16 to make it into the final phase of brackets. And we'll be starting off by taking a look at winner's side. Our first winner's side top 8 competitor is Anin, who is continuing their amazing second place finish from Level Up Expo 2025 here at Kowloon. First, Anin defeated Kurofune 3-0 and MK Leo's Aegis 3-1 in top 96, making it into winner's quarters, where they then defeated Mia's Game & Watch in a close Game 5 set. It is important to note that the monitor had issues twice in Game 5, which some people have used to discredit this win, but do remember that this set had to reach Game 5 before any monitor issues came into effect. The person meeting Anin in winner's semis would be Tweak, attending his final Ultimate Tournament, where he first defeated Furada Ramen and MK Big Boss 3-1 to make winner's quarters, before beating Shuton 3-1 to make winner's side top 8. The other side of winner's semis would first be occupied by Gluttony, who defeated Maldna HO's Donkey Kong in a close call Game 5, as well as Rawflow, who had just beaten Nagare, in a 3-0 sweep to make winner's quarters. Then Gluto defeated Spargo in a clean 3-0 to make winner's semifinals. And our last person entering top 8 from winner's half of bracket is Sonics, who first defeated Sora J 3-0 as well as Akakikusu 3-1, overcoming both the hero and the surprisingly successful counterpick Sora to make winner's quarters, where Sonics then clutched a Game 5 set over Light to make winner's side top 8 against Gluttony. Moving down into loser's side, we've first got Light, who made it to winner's quarters by defeating Noi and Kept, both in 3-1s, before losing a Game 5 to Sonics and lastly defeating Rocky 3-0, who had just eliminated MK Leo the round prior, which allowed Light to make loser's side top 8. Facing him there would be Spargo, who made it to winner's quarters by defeating Kyon, Mark, and Apollo Kage, before losing to Gluttony and lastly using Roy to defeat Kurofune's Sonic, to make it into loser's 8s against Light. Next up, we've got Yoshidora, who made what is by far the greatest losers run of the entire tournament. After having lost a Game 5 to Kept in round 1 of top 96, Yoshidora defeated Miko, who had just eliminated Meister, in a Game 5, as well as Noi and Apollo Kage in 3-0s, before lastly defeating both Rarikusu and Shuton in close Game 5 sets, to make it into loser side top 8 of Kowloon 16 after having been in a bit of a slump so far this year. And lastly, we've got Miya, who made it to winner's quarters by defeating Akasa 3-1, Ryuo 3-0, and Rocky 3-2, before losing to Anin in just as many games, and lastly defeating Peanut in a 3-0 sweep to make it into loser's 8s. And that's our top 8. It's completely filled with repeat matchups that we've seen several times before, but it's also very worth noting that Yoshidora and Miya are the only 2 Japanese reps in top 8. It's one thing if North America defends their own territory, like at Battle of BC or Level Up Expo, but it's another thing entirely for North America to come and dominate in Japan, something that was sorely lacking in Kaguribi but is very present here at Kowloon, with America, France, and the Dominican Republic all being represented in this Japanese Super Major Top 8. It's now time for us to go over this Top 8 and get down to our one winner. Normally, I'd go in the order these sets were streamed, but since Kowloon had multiple Top 8 sets going at the same time, I'm just gonna go over these sets in the order I normally would in my montage videos. Starting with losers 8s, then going up to winners semis, losers quarters, and then progressing from there. Let's go ahead and start with our first set. First up, we've got Spargo versus Light, a matchup that has been very Light dominant in their past few meetings. Spargo knew that if he was going to beat Light, he'd need to do something different, something that no one would expect. He needed Piranha Plant.
Et j'ai jamais vu Light dans cet état. J'ai jamais vu Light autant ne pas savoir quoi faire. Mais qu'est-ce qui se passe, Spargo? Mais qu'est-ce qui se passe? Oh!
That's right, ending the set with a 3 stock on the 4th best player in the world, Spargo defeated Light 3-1 with solo Piranha Plant, allowing Spargo to move on in bracket and eliminating Light at 7th place as the 6th seed. The other side of losers 8th saw Yoshidora go up against Mia for the first time in a hot minute, admittedly. And even though this set would go down to a decisive Game 5, in the end it was Yoshidora who would win that Game 5, getting a massive upset that eliminated Mia at 7th place as the 1st seed of the tournament, and with Yoshidora moving on. Now let's move up to winner's side, the first set of which seeing Gluttony go up against Sonex. And despite all odds, Gluto would actually defeat Sonex 3-1 despite the awful matchup and set history versus him. This cast Sonex down into losers against Yoshidora and allowed Gluttony to move into winners finals.
24% はちょっとこのコンボからのおならで撃墜だ。
The other side of winners semis, Tweak versus Anin, started off very dominantly for Tweak, going up 2-0 in the set despite the bad matchup. And we just saw Gluto defeat Sonex in a bad matchup too, so surely Tweak is going to beat Anin here and give us a peak winners finals of Tweak versus Gluttony for his last ever Ultimate Tournament. Right? Right? Right?
乗り越えてみせろツイーク。
Ultimately, Anin would reverse 3-0 Tweak, moving into winners finals against Gluttony and casting Tweak down into losers quarters against Spargo. That set would also go down to a decisive Game 5, but ultimately...
Tranquillamente, le side B il est pas puni. La banane elle est pas punie. Et on utilise la banane, on fait des trucs de PlayStation. On utilise même le FP. On utilise toutes les options.
Tweak would defeat Spargo in that Game 5, eliminating him at 5th place as the 2nd seed and moving into losers semifinals, awaiting the other side of losers quarters, Yoshidora versus Sonex. This set started off very strongly for Yoshidora, going up 2-0, but just like the winners semi set prior, Sonex would end up reverse 3-0ing Yoshidora piece by piece, eliminating Yoshidora at 5th place as the 11th seed, and with Sonex moving up into losers semifinals against Tweak. This was potentially Tweak's final ultimate set ever. Surely this set would be explosive, hype, cool beyond measure, right?
これ急にはこれは時間がないタイムアップだ
Well, ultimately, Sonex defeated Tweak 3-1, not 3-2 like StartGG says, in a set where 3 of the 4 games ended in a timeout. Sonex moved on in bracket, and Tweak, he was eliminated at 4th place as the 5th seed, and that's all she wrote. A good performance, sure, but it's hard not to get depressed over the fact that Tweak's last ever Ultimate Tournament ended with him getting reverse 3-0'd by Steve and timed out by Sonic. An ironic and perhaps fitting end for one of Ultimate's best to ever do it. In an interview with a commentator, Tweak said that he'll almost certainly be back for the next Smash game, and he's only retiring because of personal issues. So this is not goodbye forever, but at the same time, this is his goodbye from competitive Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. We'll miss you, Tweak, but for now, we've got a tournament to finish. Up in winners finals, Anen would face off against Gluttony, who's actually had quite a good record against fellow Steve Main, Syrup, Susu, and Crepe Soleil. But this set against Anen wasn't even close, with Anen sweeping 3-0 to move into grand finals from winners side and cast Gluto down into losers finals to face Sonics in the run back from winners semis.
相手のトロッコのジャンプに対して空母がこれ激つい
And this set would not have the same result, because even though Gluto did manage to take a game, ultimately it was Sonics who would win the set 3-1.
この上言いたいぞ上で見たいぞあの自国の中かなりいやらしい読み合いを回していますよね
Eliminating Gluttony at 3rd place as the 7th seed, and with Sonics moving into grand finals from losers side to face off against Anen to see who would become your champion of Kowloon 16. But here's the thing. I would love nothing more than to hype grand finals up as a big, epic, long showdown, but honestly, it was a wash. Just watch.
ストレートが取れあと一歩だこの壁は大丈夫か下スマッシュは避けて激水だ
And just like that, Anen defeated Sonics 3-0, eliminating him at 2nd place as the 3rd seed, and with Anen winning Kowloon 16 as the 9th seed. And trust me, I know a lot of people aren't going to be happy about this win. Okay, let's take this in a different direction, shall we? Spin it a little bit. This is Anen's first super major victory since Super Smash Con 2022, a great return to form for them. And not only that, this is the first time an American player, as in a player from the USA, has won a Japanese major. Sure, North American competitors have won Japanese majors, like Spargo at Kaguribi 10, and players from the USA have won Japanese ranked events, like H4 at Sumobato SP38. But a player from the USA has never won a Japanese major until this past weekend at Kowloon 16 under Anen. Now are you convinced not to doom about this tournament? No? Well, okay, but can you at least keep the hate on Steve and not on Anen? Listen, I'm not happy to see Steve win either. He's far from my favorite character, and I think Tweak vs. Gluto would have been a hype winners finals. But I really do like Anen as a competitor, and their story and come up have been inspiring. If you're gonna hate the game, not the player. That's all I ask. Like it or not, with Anen's win here and 2nd place finish at Level Up Expo, Anen is certainly within the top 10 in the world for 2025 so far. There is plenty to be happy about outside of Steve. For example, Sonics had a rebound after a streak of underperformances with his 2nd place finish here at Kowloon. There are also several players who had good runs at both Kaguribi and Kowloon that is sure to help out their place in the rankings. This mostly applies to Gluttony, Tweak, and Mia, the only 3 players to top 8 both tournaments. We also saw both Spargo and Yoshidora make great rebounds from their underperformances at Kaguribi, with Spargo in particular showing he's not letting a measly 33rd place finish derail him, and bringing out one of the game's worst characters to prove it. I mean, seriously, Light lost to Buzz Lightyear at Kaguribi and Piranha Plant at Kowloon. If that's not disrespect, I don't know what is. Either way, next weekend currently doesn't have any major tournament lined up, though that may change by the time this video comes out. Most competitors are traveling back home from Japan and cooling off from this concert of Smash Ultimate. Opener, headliner, and Kowloon 16, the Encore. I've been RisterMice, and that's going to be it for today's video. Before I go, shout out to my Tier 2 patron Ben L, and an extra special thanks to my Tier 3 supporters Myriad, who says Big D will make it out of his slump, Avidun, who says Mr. Rice is the GOAT of Smash content, and Iltis, who says MKLeo always comes back. If you want to support me using any of these methods, links in the description down below. Before I go, I just want to thank each and every one of you for 15,000 subscribers on this channel. Or at least, I think I should be at 15K when this releases. I'm at 14,993 as I write this. Either way, thank you all very much for 15K or a soon-to-be 15K. None of this would be possible without y'all's continued support. With that said, I've been RisterMice, and thank you all so very much for watching.